Welcome to Things vs. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, where I take a totally unbiased look at how things stack up against The Rock. This week's challenger, Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo is one of the greatest video game consoles of all time, with countless classics like Super Mario World, A Link to the Past, Earthbound, Donkey Kong Country, the list goes on. But how does it compare to The Rock? SNES sold just over 49 million units worldwide, but that doesn't match The Rock's ability to sell video games. 60 million WWE games featuring The Rock have been sold, and that's just wrestling video games alone. That doesn't count the movie tie-in games, or the games that he inexplicably stars in for no reason. And what about longevity? Super Nintendo came out in 1990 and was effectively obsolete once the Nintendo 64 came out in 1996. Speaking of 1996, that was the year that Dwayne Johnson, then known as Rocky Maivia, signed with WWF. His longevity has far surpassed the inconsequential 6-year run of the Super Nintendo. In fact, 21 years later, he is still the highest grossing actor in the world. While I'm sure there are a lot of fun games you can play on The Rock, none of them are Chrono Trigger, and for that, a point goes to Super Nintendo. Let's get superficial for a second and talk about looks. Look at the graphics the SNES was capable of delivering. Let's zoom in a bit. Look at that. Terrible. But Dwayne Johnson? Check him out. Zoom in a little further. Look at those textures. Unreal HD graphics that make the Super Nintendo look like garbage. Now, I mentioned before that the Super Nintendo's run was ended when Nintendo 64 was released. However, that wasn't the true offspring of the SNES. For reference, here's a picture of The Rock's offspring with his mother. Beautiful. Great concept, great delivery. Now take a peek at the Super Nintendo's offspring, the Virtual Boy. What a disaster. One of the biggest flops in the history of gaming. Look at how the actual games look on this thing. Terrible, absolutely terrible. Well, once again, it looks like we have a clear winner here. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So ends this episode of Things vs. The Rock. Leave a comment with something you think could be better than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and I'll give another objective, fact-based comparison. Like, subscribe, and donate on Patreon.